Okay, imagine this. Tomorrow, every single drug is legal. Cannabis, fentanyl, everything. Regulated, taxed, just out there.
Mm-hmm.
You make your choices, and then we just kind of let nature sort it out.
Right.
Now, be really honest with yourself. That idea, does it feel liberating? Like ultimate freedom?
Or does it just feel
Yeah,
terrifying?
exactly. Or does a cold knot just tighten up in your stomach thinking about the chaos?
Of that first gut reaction, that conflict,
Yeah.
it's really telling, isn't it?
Yeah.
It sort of strips away all the layers, the rules society puts around these things.
Throws you right back onto your basic beliefs. About people, about the government's job.
What do we really think people would do without those guardrails?
So let's play that out. Day one, picture the cartels. Just gone. Their power evaporates overnight.
Yeah, that's a powerful image. And maybe, just maybe, overdoses from bad batches, from fentanyl-laced stuff, plummet because it's all quality controlled.
That feels like liberation, right? But then, boom, the questions hit.
Like a ton of bricks.
What happens to addiction rates? Do they just shoot through the roof?
And our hospitals, our healthcare systems, can they even cope? Are they overwhelmed instantly?
In that world, who actually does okay? And who just disappears? It's a brutal thought.
It is. It's a brutal calculation. You're weighing, potentially less external harm, the violence, the poison against maybe more internal struggle for individuals.
Yeah.
It really forces you to confront that core question.
Yeah.
Is the order we get from prohibition worth the price we pay for it?
Or is individual freedom the absolute top value, even with all the risks that come with it?
Fundamental.
And it shines a light on, well, my own habits, right? 3 shots of espresso to start the day, maybe a glass of wine later.
Perfectly legal. Socially
Yeah,
fine.
Totally fine. And I might even catch myself judging someone using something else to cope.
Mm-hmm.
But what if the only real difference is, like, a government stamp and a slick marketing campaign?
That's the uncomfortable part. Are you judging their need or just their choice of substance compared to your own accepted ones?
It cuts right to the heart of it, that self-reflection. We draw these lines, legal, illegal, often based on history, culture, not always pure logic or danger.
Absolutely. And when you look at your own reliance, maybe small, maybe bigger, on things to just get through the day,
Yeah,
it gets harder to stand on that moral high ground, doesn't it?
it does. Are we judging the drug itself or just the label society slapped on it, the stigma?
Which is powerful. Stigma is incredibly powerful.
Think about the war on drugs. Billions or probably trillions globally poured into it.
Generations lost, especially for marginalized communities.
Yeah.
Locked up.
Trillions feeding criminal empires worldwide. And the honest truth,
It's not working.
it's just not. The fentanyl crisis alone screams failure every single day.
A catastrophic failure, many would argue.
Yet the second you suggest something different, something radical like legalization, it feels scary. Why is that?
What are we so desperately holding on to?
Is it really public safety? Or is it more about like a moral order, a feeling of control, even if it's maybe an illusion?
Well, the war on drugs gives you a clear enemy, right? A simple solution. Punish them.
Black and white.
Exactly. Considering legalization means stepping into the gray, into uncertainty. It means admitting the chaos we fear might already be here, just wearing a different costume.
Look at Portugal. They decriminalized possession, what, years ago now?
Yeah, quite a while back. And the results are interesting.
The sky didn't fall, right? Addiction rates didn't explode, especially not for young people.
In fact, some metrics improved. They shifted focus to health, to treatment.
So what's our holdup? Is it really the drugs? Or are we maybe addicted to punishment, addicted to that illusion of control prohibition gives us, even when the evidence piles up against it?
What's the comforting lie we prefer? Portugal's experience really does suggest that treating this as a health issue first, not a crime first, can work. It can stabilize things, even improve them.
Frees up resources too, right, for actual help.
Right. So our resistance, maybe it comes from that deep-seated need to condemn, a fear of looking like we approve of something we think is wrong.
Okay, so what if legalization did lead to more visible addiction, more people openly needing help?
That's a possibility, a scary one for many.
But what if it also meant way fewer deaths, less crime, and a huge chunk of tax money to actually fund the treatment people need?
Is that trade-off worth thinking about? Seriously considering?
Or is keeping the problem hidden pushed into the shadows even if those shadows are way deadlier somehow, easier for us to stomach.
Which discomfort can we live with? That's the ethical tightrope, isn't it?
Do we prioritize hiding the problem, even if it means letting it fester and cause more damage unseen?
Or are we brave enough to face a possibly bigger, more visible problem if it means we might actually solve parts of it more effectively, make society healthier in the long run?
What does wanting to hide it say about us? About our real priorities?
It's this question.
I read this story. Brilliant surgeon, got injured, developed an opioid addiction, managed it for years, functional.
Okay.
Then the crackdown started, the supply tightened up, he turned to the street, fentanyl, died.
Oh.
Prohibition didn't save him. You could argue it killed him by pushing him to that poisoned supply.
That's a devastating example of the unintended consequences. Disrupting the supply doesn't kill the demand.
No, it just makes the supply chain infinitely more dangerous. So who is this system actually protecting?
It certainly doesn't protect everyone it claims to. It fuels that volatile black market where anything goes. People who might manage, they face huge risks.
Prohibition doesn't stop use. It just makes it deadlier and
Wow.
puts control in the hands of, well, criminals.
Those who profit from the chaos, exactly.
That phrase keeps coming back to me. Let nature sort it out. What does that even mean when we talk about addiction? Is nature some inherent strength or weakness?
Or does it just describe a kind of brutal indifference, where the people already on the margins, without money, without support, they're just left alone to face it?
Is it natural selection for the vulnerable, just dressed up as being tough? Right? Socrates warned about societies that value strength over justice, didn't he?
Applying that kind of Darwinian lens feels inadequate. It ignores all the social factors, the economics, the psychology, the trauma involved in addiction.
Yeah, it feels like a cop-out.
To frame it as nature's way risks covering up our own failures as a society, our lack of empathy. It's a convenient excuse for doing nothing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Disguising indifference as natural law.
We always hear, freedom isn't free. Okay. But what if the price of total drug freedom is watching some people choose self-destruction?
Is that a price we can pay as a society?
Or is the current price, the gang violence, the corruption, locking up millions somehow better because it feels like we're doing something, maintaining control?
Nietzsche talked about the will to power.
Mm.
Is our will to control others stronger than our belief in their right to choose, even poorly?
It's that fundamental tension again, liberty versus the state acting like a parent. Where does the right to step in begin and end, especially with self-harm?
The current system is one answer, but people are questioning if it's the right one or even an effective one.
Think about alcohol prohibition again. They banned it.
People kept drinking, just
Yeah.
underground.
Organized crime boomed. Cops got corrupted. The booze itself was often dangerous, poisoned.
And when they finally repealed it, did society collapse like they predicted?
Not really. We just swapped one set of problems for another. Arguably, a less catastrophic set. History has lessons if we listen.
It really does. Suppressing a widespread desire often backfires spectacularly, creates worse problems. Repeal didn't end alcohol problems, but it reduced the prohibition-caused harms.
Okay, take a breath. Think about someone you know. Someone struggling with self-destructive behavior. Anything. If all drugs were legal tomorrow, what do you honestly think happens to them?
Now, Takeshi, ask yourself this. Is the current system, with all its laws and punishments, actually helping that person right now?
Or is it just making their potential downfall
Yeah.
slower, messier, more dangerous for everyone?
Sometimes the best intentions pave the road to, well, unintended consequences. Abstract policy debates miss the human cost.
Thinking about someone real makes it different, doesn't it? Challenges the idea that just locking people up is compassionate or effective.
It really does.
Okay, now for the really uncomfortable one. Deep down,
Uh-oh.
do you have a little part of you that thinks addicts are just weak? That they made their bed, now they lie in it?
But maybe nature sorting it out isn't so bad for those people.
If that thought, even just a flicker, has crossed your mind, what does that say? About your compassion, your belief that every life has value.
Jung talked about the shadow self. What darkness does that judgment reveal in us? Blaming the individual lets us off the hook, doesn't it?
Yeah, it absolves us of any societal responsibility, ignores the complex web of reasons people end up there. Systemic failures, lack of support.
Dismissing them as just deserving it is, well, it's easy. Too easy.
Dark hypothetical time. Brace yourself.
Okay.
Option A, 100 deaths this year from cartel violence, dirty drug wars, all fueled by prohibition. Option B, 10 deaths from overdoses on clean, regulated, legal drugs.
Don't flinch. Just. which feels like the bigger policy failure. Where does our responsibility lie in that awful choice?
It's a horrific choice, a Sophie's choice for drug policy.
It forces you to weigh different kinds of harm. Prohibition tries to stop use but fuels violence and unsafe supply. Legalization might increase access, maybe overdoses, but offers control.
There are just no easy outs here, are there, when you're dealing with human behavior this complex?
None at all, just trade-off.
Look around us. Big tobacco kills millions. Big alcohol, same deal.
Big pharma and the opioid crisis they help fuel, all legal.
Exactly. Legal substances causing massive harm. We tax them, we regulate them sort of weakly, and we basically accept the casualties.
So why the completely different moral fury, the legal hammer for heroin or meth?
Is it really about how dangerous they are, or is it more about who we associate with those drugs, the demographics?
Who do we decide is worthy of saving, or even worthy of our compassion?
That hypocrisy point is so crucial. Our response seems driven less by evidence and more by, well, prejudice, moral judgments tied up with race, class.
Deeply ingrained stuff, hard to untangle.
Okay, rapid fire. Be honest. If everything was legal tomorrow, quality controlled, available, would you try, say, heroin or meth?
Yes or no? Why? What stops you? Fear, morals, just zero interest.
And if you wouldn't suddenly spiral into addiction, why are we so sure everyone else would?
Are you inherently stronger or just
Yeah.
luckier? Different circumstances, different brain chemistry.
It's a tough mirror to look into. Those quick judgments about others, they crumble a bit, don't they?
They do. Our reasons for not using are complex. Assuming everyone else lacks that control over those reasons is, well, it's a logical leap. Human behavior is incredibly varied.
Here's my conflict. I believe, fiercely in bodily autonomy. Your body, your choice, period.
Okay.
But the thought of fentanyl being sold legally, easily available, it genuinely terrifies me.
So am I a hypocrite? Am I picking and choosing which freedoms count?
Or are some freedoms just too dangerous, even for someone who believes in liberty above almost all else? Where's that line?
That's a really common internal conflict. Liberty versus public health. Individual choice versus the potential for irreversible harm.
The whole debate forces you to confront those limits, doesn't it? Society's duty to protect versus the individual's right to choose their own path, even a destructive one.
There's no easy answer there.
I have a friend who works in harm reduction, gives out clean needles, saves lives from HIV, Hep C.
Vital work.
But people call them an enabler, say they're helping people kill themselves slowly.
Yeah, that's the common criticism.
Their argument, keeping people alive today gives them a chance for change tomorrow. You can't recover if you're dead.
Who's right in that? It's agonizing. There's no clean moral high ground.
It's that immediate harm reduction versus the longer-term hope of recovery. Do you prioritize saving a life right now, even if it involves facilitating use, or stick to an ideal of abstinence, even if it costs lives?
Brutal choices.
Maybe some people will choose oblivion if it's easy. Maybe real freedom has to include the freedom to self-destruct.
Our discomfort with that idea doesn't make it untrue.
So, does the state have the right to forcibly stop that? Especially when the method prohibition causes so much other damage, collateral damage.
It's state authority versus individual will. Again, where does the right to make potentially fatal choices end? Does the state's interest in preserving life always trump self-determination?
The current system says, yes, intervention is justified. Legalization challenges that assumption head on.
It really does.
Think about this. CEOs microdosing psilocybin for peak performance. That's cool, innovative, biohacking.
Right. It gets framed positively.
But someone poor using meth to numb trauma or just cope with a brutal reality, they're a junkie, a menace.
Same basic idea, altering consciousness, but perceived totally differently.
Can you spot the difference? It's not the drug chemistry, it's privilege, it's class. Our biases are just laid bare.
That contrast is stark. It shows how much social standing influences whether we pathologize or praise substance use.
The war on drugs gives us a simple story, right? Good guys versus bad guys, us versus them.
Clear lines. Comforting, in a way.
But legalization, it shatters that. Suddenly the problem isn't some shadowy other out there. It's potentially our neighbors, our family, ourselves.
Is that internal confrontation what we're really afraid of? Having to face the issue within our own communities, our own lives?
Facing our own vulnerabilities, our own potential. That's rarely comfortable, is it?
No. Blaming an external enemy is easier than introspection. Legalization forces that introspection, forces us to see drug use often as a symptom of deeper problems in society.
I think about that homeless veteran story, addicted after service injuries, bounced in and out of jail for possession, denied treatment repeatedly, died alone in a tent.
It's tragic and infuriating.
Did prohibition help him? Did nature sort him out? Or did our system, the one we designed, fail him completely, utterly?
Whose fault was his death? Framing that as nature is just cruel. It ignores the systemic barriers, the lack of care, the way the criminal system traps people.
It's a dismissal of failure, a callous one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Flip the script entirely. Imagine alcohol and caffeine are made Schedule 1, illegal, overnight. Police raiding coffee shops, felony charges for having wine at home. Would you just comply, roll over?
Or would you suddenly see the war on drugs from the inside in a totally new, very personal light?
Perspective shifts everything, doesn't it? That kind of empathy exercise. It can be powerful. It helps understand the injustice felt by those targeted now.
It really does. It challenges the normalcy we attach to our own habits.
Look, I know people want simple answers. Good drugs, bad drugs. Legal, illegal. Good guys, bad guys.
It's human nature to want clarity.
But drugs are complicated. Addiction is this tangled mess of biology, psychology, society, and freedom. Freedom is inherently messy.
If you're still demanding easy answers after all this, maybe you're avoiding the reality. The complex, sometimes terrifying reality of being human.
You gotta embrace the discomfort, the gray areas.
Yeah, wanting simple solutions blinds us. It stops us digging into the real causes, the potential fixes. Reducing human struggle to black and white doesn't help anyone.
Think about history. Opium dens were legal once in the 19th century. Laudanum, basically opium tincture, was in every medicine cabinet.
Society didn't collapse then.
No. Maybe our current panic says more about us, our anxieties now, than about the inherent evil of these substances. History gives perspective.
It suggests our responses are shaped by our times, by culture, by fear, not just by the drugs themselves.
And maybe this whole legalize versus prohibit fight, maybe it's missing the bigger picture.
How so?
What if the real crisis is the demand, the constant, relentless urge to escape, to feel different, to cope?
What if our society is actively creating the pain that makes drugs seem like a solution?
Then arguing about legalizing or banning is just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, right? We're not addressing the iceberg.
That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
Focusing only on supply ignores what drives demand in the first place. Social inequality, trauma, mental health crises, lack of opportunity.
We have to look at that stuff if we want real long-term change. And what if your responsible glass of wine, my necessary coffee, what if it comes from the same fundamental impulse as someone reaching for opioids?
Oof.
What if your strength in handling it isn't strength at all, but just privilege? Better circumstances? Better luck in the genetic lottery?
Does that thought destabilize how you see yourself, your place in the world?
It's a mirror most of us try very hard to avoid looking into. It challenges our judgments, erodes that feeling of being fundamentally different or better.
It reveals shared humanity, maybe, in uncomfortable ways.
You probably still mentally sort drugs into good and bad based mainly on whether they're legal or not, not based on their actual chemistry or effects.
That conditioning runs deep. It's societal programming we barely even notice.
Recognizing that bias, that programming, is maybe the first step towards thinking more clearly about it.
Towards a more rational approach.
So maybe letting nature sort it out isn't about freedom at all. Maybe it's just a nicer way of saying societal neglect.
Maybe drugs aren't the disease. Maybe they're the symptom of a much deeper sickness in society.
And we are the ones doing the sorting. Through our policies, through poverty, through trauma we ignore, through the lack of care we provide.
Viewing it as a symptom shifts the focus entirely. From punishment to addressing root causes. Healing, not just containing.
So legalize everything and let nature sort it out. If your answer is still a quick yes or no, you might be choosing slogans over really grappling with the truth.
The complexity, the nuance, that's where the understanding actually starts. You have to be willing to sit in the gray areas.
If any of this shook something loose, share it. Talk to someone who holds the opposite view.
Don't try to win, just ask them. What scares you more? The drugs themselves? Or the idea of that kind of freedom with all its risks? Just nudge the conversation.
Engaging respectfully, even when you disagree fundamentally, is how we move forward. Or at least understand each other better.
Soften those hard lines a little.
What if that urge, that desire to alter consciousness is just fundamental, like hunger or thirst?
Then trying to eradicate drugs completely is like trying to ban desire itself. maybe futile.
History seems to suggest it's a recurring human impulse, across cultures, across time.
Always been there, in some form.
Think about this. Death from a dirty needle, a direct result of prohibition pushing things underground. Or an overdose death from clean, legal, but still dangerous drugs.
Which scenario carries more societal guilt? Whose hands are dirtier? The ones upholding prohibition or the ones allowing regulated access?
It forces you to confront the consequences of the policies we choose. Where does our responsibility really lie?
We treat illegal drugs like they're terrorism, but legal drugs like alcohol or tobacco, more like fast food.
Yeah.
Kind of bad for you, but hey, your choice.
The hypocrisy is just breathtaking sometimes. It reveals it's about fear, control, prejudice, not just health.
The rhetoric is inconsistent, driven by moral panic as much as evidence.
Picture two mothers, both lost a son to drugs. One son died from legal prescription opioids, the other from illegal street heroin.
Is their grief different? Does the legality change the tragedy for them?
Loss is loss. The legal status feels irrelevant in the face of that kind of pain. It highlights the shared human suffering.
Absolutely.
Think about your own life. The risks you take for pleasure or just to cope. Speeding, extra drinks, unsafe sex, junk food.
Why are some of those risks socially acceptable, even celebrated sometimes, but drug use gets singled out for such intense condemnation? Who draws that line and based on what?
Is it logic? Or just bias? Examining our own behavior reveals how subjective those judgments often are, influenced by culture, by what we personally value or fear.
It's rarely purely rational.
You hear people, tough on crime, but they ignore the crime caused by prohibition itself.
Or pro-freedom. Until it involves substances they deem too dangerous, then freedom needs limits.
Both extremes avoid the messy middle, the complex truth. Rigid positions often feel safer, but they're usually just comforting lies.
They fail to graph the whole picture. A more nuanced view is needed.
I heard an ex-cop admit it once, said the war on drugs was often just an excuse, a tool to target poor communities, minority groups. The drugs were the pretext.
That kind of honesty is chilling. It suggests these laws can be weapons of social control, not just public safety measures.
The implications are enormous and deeply disturbing.
Yeah.
Safe supply sites, are they enabling addiction? Or are they saving lives right now? Abstinence only versus harm reduction.
It's an ethical fog. Painful trade-offs no matter what. There are no clean wins here, just difficult choices between different kinds of harm.
Immediate life-saving versus a long-term, maybe unattainable, ideal, agonizing.
Legalization doesn't have to mean a free-for-all zero control. We regulate alcohol, tobacco, prescription meds, sometimes strictly.
Could we imagine similar controls for other drugs, tailored to their risks? Is that possibility just too frightening for us to even consider seriously?
A regulated market is a possibility, aiming to minimize harm through controls rather than pretending we can eliminate use entirely through bans. It's a different model.
You don't have to like drugs or approve of drug use to question whether prohibition has failed.
You just have to be willing to look at the evidence. To consider that the cure, the war on drugs, might actually be worse than the disease. Can you hold that possibility in your mind?
Critical thinking means separating your personal feelings from an objective look at the results. Being willing to admit something isn't working.
Even if you don't like the alternatives.
Follow the money. Who profits from prohibition right now?
Prison systems, some law enforcement budgets, the cartels obviously, maybe even parts of the legal drug industry that benefit from less competition.
And who might profit from legalization?
Governments through taxes, maybe new legal corporations. What about the users themselves? Less risk, maybe? Less stigma? It shifts the economics entirely.
It's always worth asking who benefits from the status quo.
Always.
I'll admit, I used to have really rigid views on this, very anti-drug. Then I started seeing the costs, the hypocrisy, the failures.
Yeah, I have way more questions than answers.
Yeah.
And honestly, that uncertainty feels more truthful.
Admitting you don't know everything, being willing to change your mind based on evidence. That's intellectual honesty, right? Especially with issues this complex.
It's growth.
A harm reduction worker once asked me, is building a hospital enabling sickness?
Wow. That's powerful.
Just sit with that for a second. What is the actual goal of our drug policies? Is it punishment? Or is it healing, reducing suffering?
That analogy reframes the whole debate, doesn't it? Seeing harm reduction as a public health necessity, focused on care, not condemnation.
Deep down, I think fear drives a lot of our stance on this more than logic does.
Fear of addiction hitting close to home. Fear of social chaos. fear of the unknown.
Can you just acknowledge that fear exists in you without needing a simple black and white answer to make it go away?
Recognizing those underlying emotions is key. Our fears shape our opinions, often unconsciously. Bringing them into the light allows for more rational thought.
Have you ever loved someone struggling with addiction? Felt that helplessness, the anger, the fear?
That experience, it just shreds all the simplistic arguments, doesn't it? It throws you into this vast, heartbreaking gray zone.
Personal experience often cuts through the abstract theory like nothing else. It highlights the failures of the current system from the inside. It fosters empathy.
It complicates everything in a necessary way.
No drug policy, none, will ever eliminate all harm. It's impossible.
So it comes down to choosing. Which harms are we willing to tolerate? Which victims do we prioritize? What price are we willing to pay for the policy we choose?
These are brutal choices, with unavoidable consequences either way. Policymaking is about navigating those trade-offs.
Legalization would change roles too.
Yep.
You wouldn't just be an observer of the drug problem. You, me, everyone, we'd be more involved. Responsibility becomes more direct, more personal.
It's a world where we're all potentially a bit more implicated in the solutions and the problems. Requires a shift towards public health, collective responsibility.
Maybe less us and them.
If your identity is partly built on being sober, on not being like those addicts, what happens if drugs are just another legal choice, like alcohol?
Does that identity feel less stable? Who are you without that clear other to define yourself against?
Our self-perception is tied up in these social categories. Legalization could shake those foundations, force a reevaluation.
Identity can be fragile.
One thing seems clear. You can't build effective policy on shame.
No. Shaming people who use drugs just drives them further underground, isolates them, makes them less likely to seek help.
We have to address the underlying pain, the reasons why. Compassion has to be the starting point, not condemnation. Stigma is a massive barrier to treatment.
Policy needs to prioritize help, support, harm reduction, not just punishment.
Imagine your loved one is addicted to dangerous street drugs. There is an option for a safe legal supply, keeps them alive, reduces crime, connects them to services, but maybe they don't get clean right away or ever.
Or you stick to pushing abstinence only, hoping they'll quit, but knowing they risk death every single day they use from the illegal market.
What does love demand in that situation? It feels like an impossible choice for families.
Faced with that reality, pragmatic compassion, reducing immediate harm, often outweighs abstract principles. Keeping them alive becomes priority one.
Maybe your silence, our collective silence, on the failures and violence of the war on drugs. Maybe it's a form of consent.
Maybe inaction is an action, an endorsement of the status quo with all its blood and costs. Passivity in the face of injustice implies acceptance.
Time to wake up to the consequences of just letting it roll on. Critical engagement is vital.
Looking ahead, 50 years from now, how will people see this era, our war on drugs?
Will they see it as a period of, misguided moral panic, like we now see prohibition or witch hunts?
What side of history are you choosing to be on right now? Future generations will judge the choices we make today. Historical perspective often brings clarity we lack in the moment.
Maybe real compassion lies in granting freedom, even if that freedom could lead to destruction for some.
And maybe trying to control everything out of fear just breeds more despair and hidden suffering. It's a paradox, a brutal one.
Navigating these dilemmas means living with those paradoxes, accepting there are no perfect answers, only flawed humans making difficult choices.
We have to learn to handle that ambiguity.
I'll be honest, the idea of full, wide-open legalization still scares me on some level.
But I am absolutely certain that prohibition, as we've practiced it, is a catastrophic failure on almost every level.
So clinging to that failure just because the alternative feels scary, that feels like cowardice, doesn't it?
Recognizing the failure is the necessary first step. Exploring alternatives, even with uncertainty, is the responsible next step. Acknowledging fear is human. Letting it paralyze us is a choice.
We are all implicated in this. Through the laws we live under, the judgments we make, the industries we support, the politicians we elect, there's no clean escape.
It's a shared, messy reality. Systemic problems demand collective awareness, collective responsibility.
So, back to the start. Let nature sort it out.
It's not nature doing the sorting, it's us. Through policy, through poverty, through how we treat trauma survivors, through the care we offer or withhold, we decide who gets left behind.
The phrase itself masks our own agency, our own choices.
Exactly. It's a deflection.
Maybe freedom, real freedom, is terrifying because it reveals our true values, what we prioritize when the choice is actually ours.
And maybe we fear legalizing drugs not just because of what others might do, but because of what our own choices or our inability to find happiness without external help might reveal about ourselves.
It's a mirror to our own souls, maybe, and sometimes we don't like what we see.
The prospect of freedom can be deeply unsettling, forcing us to confront those deeper fears about ourselves and society.
If this whole conversation felt like whiplash, bouncing between extremes, good.
If it made you question just one assumption you held, even better.
If you found yourself pushing back hard against some points, that's where the real thinking starts. Embrace that friction.
Cognitive dissonance, that uncomfortable feeling, it's often a catalyst for growth. Engaging with ideas that challenge you is how understanding deepens.
So if something in here resonated or maybe infuriated you, share it.
Nudge someone who thinks differently. Don't aim to convince, just provoke a thought, plant a seed of doubt. Or maybe they'll just tell you you're crazy.
Either way, the conversation moves, and that's the point. Fostering that discussion is crucial.
This has been The Deep Dive.
We aim to provide friction, not easy comfort. Go examine your beliefs. Wrestle with it.
Thanks for joining us in this complex exploration. Keep thinking on these questions.
Until next time.